So I decided to review The Legend of Korra's first season. Why at this time, you may ask, during the airing or streaming of the third season? Well, it comes down to a few things really. One being that the show is actually starting to get good again. Like really pretty good. Yet at the same time the ratings are at an all-time low. The show has already been scheduled for 4 seasons, so it can't really be cancelled now, but it's a shame to see this negative trend occurring and the decreasing possibility of another Avatar spin-off after the general commercial failure of Korra. Of course I don't really think that by reviewing the show it would in any way affect the ratings, however I found this to be an apt time to look at the shockingly bizarre first season of the show, which has both fantastic and awful elements thrown together into a poorly paced 12-episode season, with possibly the most soul-destroying and generally self-destructive finale I've seen in recent animated years. There seems to be this absolute love-hate for the show, with sites like IMDb praising with 8s and 9s out of 10, while others argue it's the worst shit since the Great Divide. Do I love it? No. Do I hate it? Definitely not. I'm kinda somewhere in between, which is a shame because I really want to like this show. As a fan of The Last Airbender, it's crushing to see such a great concept and art go to waste for the strangest, most benign reasons.
To ask her father if we could stay here.
Yeah, but I smoothed it over with him. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Now as far as I'm discussing this, I'm straight away going to put a disclaimer out there. I am totally aware that The Legend of Korra is a kids show, and probably shouldn't be expected to be put under tight scrutiny. However, also keep in mind that the same people made The Last Airbender, which in my opinion is better structured and written than a lot of other adult shows or movies. I have absolutely no witty lines in which to get this going, so I'll just kinda start. The Legend of Korra Season 1 is absolutely mediocre. It isn't terrible and it isn't great, it's perfectly in the middle. 2.5 stars, 5 out of 10, 2 apples, 4 melons. Sadly for Korra, mediocrity is perhaps a worse fate than being terrible, because even in the case of Shyamalan's Last Excrement, you could laugh at the film's utter stupidity and general dismal production. Korra doesn't really have this. Besides a few lines which come off wrong or really generic writing, there are sparse enjoyable moments sprinkled into the show that are great. However, the rest is just a dull, boring mess. So I guess I should start from the top, and to be honest, Korra actually doesn't have that weak of an opening episode. As far as pilots go, it's pretty standard in establishing setting and having the whole fish out of water character in a new city to go exploring. What Korra is best at, however, is raising your expectations for disappointment, which is most definitely a running theme in Season 1 and 2, and possibly Season 3 considering the show's track record of awful endings. So all the basic stuff is introduced. Korra as a character is established, kinda. The goal of learning airbending, the threat of the Icarus, and Republic City are all introduced pretty well. However, despite all this being done to a good standard, I gotta say right off the bat that I just hate Korra as a character. Now don't go off of me thinking this is some sexist shit because she's female, it really isn't, and I would dislike her just as much if she were male. Also, daily reminder that Amon was right and bender oppression is a real issue. Anyway, I just don't understand why Korra is the main character, or why the writers thought she would be good as the main character. When I was first watching the episodes as they were airing, I thought I understood what they were doing with her character. Because they had a very short time span of 12 episodes, without the understanding that the show would be renewed, I assumed they would start her character off as the hothead she is and slowly transform her into some peaceful semi-monk type. This would make sense because of her learning airbending and would probably be good for the audience as she would develop as a character through her experience of airbending and would eventually overcome her adversaries through this. This is called a character arc, and I feel I need to spell it out because Korra has no character arc. Up until the present season even, her character's become more distant and has not changed one bit, at least nothing that's visible to the audience. The thing that confuses me about this though is that The Last Airbender had great character changes. Specifically Zuko, who's a great example considering he's pretty similar to Korra in terms of his anger issues. However, Zuko changes from the start of the show until the end, being shaped through his experiences until he's a better person, and by the end of the series he's done a complete 180 from where he was at the start. Not that I'm saying a character has to completely change for them to be good, but they should at least have to learn something to overcome their problems. Okay, maybe I'm getting a little too far ahead of myself here because I'm kinda referring to the season finale, however as far as the main character goes, Korra is awful. Why would the audience want to associate themselves with someone who is impatient, rude, and just generally a massive asshole? Why would the audience want this person to then achieve their goals when they disagree with the way that character acts and behaves? For me, this is the equivalent of having Zuko from Season 1 of The Last Airbender as the main character, yet never having him change as a person throughout the entirety of a show, and never explaining why he's a massive dick to everyone. Anyway, enough on why I don't like Korra for now, back to looking at Season 1. So the pilot isn't too bad. I watched it and was like, alright, it's been like 4 years, but Avatar's back. Interesting villain, character who I don't like now, but will probably develop into a better character by the end. Funny moments with Tenzin and Lin, fantastic art style, direction. Alrighty, it's gonna be good. Bright back on the job. The only thing that got me a little concerned besides the writing feeling a bit off in Korra's character was the idea of pro-bending. While I like the idea of bending being modernized and becoming a sport and all that, and kind of fitting in with the whole idea of Republic City, I'm not a fan of it actually being a major part of the show, and especially not having an entire fucking episode dedicated to it. I still don't understand why you would take an interesting concept such as bending, which has been shown to look fucking excellent in The Last Airbender, and put it on this tiny stage where characters have no room to move and can only do very specific moves without being disqualified. This is pretty much the equivalent of taking a fight scene from any kung fu film and putting the characters in a small grey room and telling them that they can only punch and kick in a very specific way. What would have been interesting instead was if pro bending was something entirely in the background that the characters just kind of casually brought up in conversation. Not a fucking major part of the show. This isn't interesting to the viewer. This is. Characters being able to move around interesting sets and use creative methods of fighting that change from episode to episode is interesting. Not being restricted to a tiny stage and having the same moves over and over again. And thus with pro bending we see another theme arise from The Legend of Korra. Interesting ideas that are executed terribly. Which sadly sums up a large portion of the show for me. So now we arrive at episode 3, and right off the bat something is ruined. Lightning bending. So for those of you who are aware of The Last Airbender, which I hope all of you are, considering I've already spoiled major aspects of the show, will be aware that lightning as a form of firebending is considered to be very rare and incredibly difficult to master, with the user having to have perfect chi alignment or whatever Iroh said. Yet it's just used as throwaway imagery here to reinforce the bland steampunk city the show is set in. I mean, in this shot alone, there are more people bending lightning than we ever saw in the entirety of The Last Airbender. I mean, they could have easily shown the firebenders heating coal considering it's how electricity is normally fucking made, and would have avoided ruining a neat aspect of the original show. Plus you had to resolve all emotional turmoil within yourself, which his character evidently hasn't done. Anyway, besides some world-ending fuck-ups on the part of the writers, the episode isn't terrible. It follows Bolin and Mako trying to get money to enter a pro bending tournament and adds some nice touches with the triple threat triads in terms of building the realism of the world. Although the whole idea of them needing money and the subsequent plot of Bolin being kidnapped by Amon is a little contrived, the whole series of events leading up to the Equalist rally is actually pretty good, though the bending feels quite weak at times in terms of entertainment, with nothing really creative besides single beams of fire or water. So we get to the Amon rally and it's fantastic. The atmosphere and music are great, and the lighting during this scene and the fight scene are absolutely phenomenal. I gotta say I really like Amon as a villain. His voice and design are great, but in particular a character that directly opposes the show's main gimmick of bending is both highly effective and fits nicely into the world.
Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. That'll be the hour they knock the slick blaster.
Keep in mind when I'm talking about Amon, I'm talking pre-season finale Amon, because the build-up for his character up to that point is sublime, with the audience being able to see him being in complete control of his situation and exerting dominance. Although his whole light Yagami levels of everything being planned out immaculately can feel a little convenient at times. As far as a villain goes, he's both intimidating intellectually and physically. Anyway, this episode in particular is great solely because of Amon and how intimidating he is, and the way in which the characters are involved in his demonstration also serves to create some good emotional tension. So yeah, yet again, the episodes aren't terrible yet. I feel I have to reinforce that although I'm pretty much going to be taking a steaming shit on the season finale and other aspects of the show, there are many moments in this season and a few in the next that are actually the quality level of The Last Airbender.
Anyway, Pema didn't steal me. Lin and I had been growing apart for some time. We both had different goals in life. Why am I even telling you this?
Which is so frustrating when the rest of the show is often filled with awful pacing and dialogue. The only thing that's really bothering me by this stage is how weak the bending feels. Although the world looks nice with the hand-drawn backgrounds and whatnot, the actual fight scenes feel really simplistic and devoid of any creativity, unlike the fight scenes in The Last Airbender, which are never dull. I also want to point out here that despite how cool a fight scene looks, it's the characters in the show that really make it good. In all honesty, I would enjoy The Last Airbender nearly as much if the fight scenes were removed or not as good simply because of how well written the characters are. However, I wouldn't enjoy it vice versa with the fight scenes being good, but the characters being poorly written. So here's the part where I start to compare The Last Airbender to the Star Wars franchise. I don't really know how else to bring this up without it being a bit too random, but here it is. Avatar and Star Wars are incredibly similar, both in the way in which the stories are told, the characters play out, and how both separate franchises turned out with their sequels or prequels. Both franchises focus around two guys and a girl riding or flying on an iconic vessel, with their goal being to destroy a tyrannical empire. The main character is thrust randomly into this situation of having to essentially save the world or galaxy, and possesses some kind of ability that he or she must train to overcome the empire. In both series, the other male character also often makes fun of this person's ability, and is also the comic relief. In both franchises, the characters are also accompanied by a small companion, which makes humorous noises at appropriate intervals, as well as a large hairy creature which is the companion of one of the characters, and is also used for comic relief. In the first season or movie, the story contains two main centerpiece villains. For The Last Airbender, it's Zhao and Zuko. For Star Wars, it's Tarkin and Darth Vader. The latter villain is recurring in the series, and also a burn victim, who in the final film or season turns to good to overthrow the Empire and the Emperor. In the second season or film, the story ends with the characters at a low point. The characters have been defeated by the recurring villain and the protagonist has been crippled in some way. Luke has his hand cut off in a revelation that Vader is his father, and Aang has his seventh chakra blocked. This analogy works even further when you realize that Mark Hamill, aka Luke in the original trilogy, voices Ozai in The Last Airbender. These are just a few things that are similar, and I'm sure there are more. Obviously, I realize that Star Wars in itself is a very simple story, and due to its huge success has had massive influence over many different films and shows. However, the point I'm trying to make isn't so much the striking similarities between The Last Airbender and the original trilogy, as it is the similarities between Korra and the prequel series. I'll get into that a little later, but for now we arrive at episode 4. Keeping in check with the other episodes, this one isn't half bad. Actually, I'd go as far to say that it's pretty decent and easily the best that we've seen so far. As far as the plot goes, Korra is invited to some kind of task force to rid the city of the Equalist threat, and is pressured into joining it by Mr. I'm not a bad guy Tarlok. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Mike and Brian were like, okay, so how do we make the audience hate this guy in the short time that we have to introduce him? Oh, I know, let's make him look evil and have him be rude to Tenzin for no apparent reason.
Because I am absolutely famished.
Oh my, Tarlok is so rude for interrupting Tenzin's dinner and exploiting his airbender kindness. He must be evil and bad. But that doesn't really work when you show your protagonist also destroying ancient relics and beating up defenseless civilians, yet promoting them as the good guy. Yeah, double standards much. The episode just gets stronger as it goes along, really. Besides the random as fuck Asami Mako love triangle subplot thing which gets introduced here, the episode ends really strongly. The Task Force raid sequence has some creativity with fight scenes despite how short they are, and are generally pretty suspenseful and interesting to watch. The ending, however, is fantastic, what I would consider to be on par with some moments of The Last Airbender. Being the cocky person she is, Korra invites Amon to a duel and pretty much gets her shit kicked in. Amon chooses not to take her bending and instead tells her that he has bigger plans for her. What's excellent about this is that we're able to see another side of Korra's character that we haven't seen before, when she cries in Tenzin's arms telling him how scared she actually was. The audience is able to understand that her cockiness is just a front for how frightened she was, and when I first watched this I was really impressed. I had started to lose hope that her character wouldn't change in any way, and despite this great scene, in the end I was right. Korra's character doesn't change after this. She literally goes back to what she normally does, and it's never mentioned again as far as I recall. What a waste of potential. I mean, you set up this great scene about how fucking scary Amon is and how frightened Korra was, yet you waste this perfect opportunity for her character to overcome this fear and be a better person. I don't know, maybe it's in her character to never change because she's stubborn, however I just chalk it off to poor character writing or just a poor choice of character in general.